I have paid attention to a lot of men and women who have discussed Trump over the years. The ones who've done the 180 of being a Trump supporter, quote unquote, to actually just hate on him in the long run, anyways. And what I'll tell you is this: Trump, in the long run, is a good president. And a lot of anarchists debate this all the time. They say that he was either a tool for the state, as well as actually being his own fool as well, rhyming scheme nonetheless, rhyming like a mofo, but actually being a fool and a tool is the way the anarchists would see Trump in particular. I'm an anarchist myself, and even I know better than to demolish someone else's institutionalization of American citizens, even though it looks like it's a bad thing only. So, one of the things that Trump actually does right is that he actually did raise his kids right. You would hear it a lot of times in the media, as far as his own coverage. He did raise his son and daughter very well. And I'm pretty sure he has more show than that. I'm not going to debunk it too hard on myself, because if you hear about only having 2 sons and 1 daughter, it's not really the accuracy I would want to work with. Who knows? Maybe that's another country, so I'll get in a second. But Trump actually did raise his son and daughter well. The fact remains that addiction is a very prevalent issue in America, and the idea of alcohol and drugs not being pursued in his own children, through even his guys with Melania Trump as well, is very brilliant. I don't think a lot of people will give enough credit to a man who does not allow the wrong things to happen as well as the right things to begin with. But, that being said, is it a Trump movement that they only did become drugs and alcohol addicts? Of course not. But it's just something that people can notice and I can be grateful for when there are already people who grow up in their own rights as well. If they didn't have to become alcohol and drug addicts, it suggests that they were already infused on the influence before. Maybe they were. If they weren't, even then it's beautiful to know something, even a patriotic standpoint. Another thing worthy of note about Trump is that he has actually been good with the tariffs. If you see in the visual behind me, there is a realistic reason why tariffs have been a good thing. They don't not only on the ideal of inflation being worse than easier. Actually, it's even better than that. They improve the situation with inflation. Like how people will lament Obama being good for national debt going down the inflation rates. That's the same truth you could make good for Trump at this point. If it's actually been that good, at least for Obama. But I know for sure it was for Trump, without being too biased towards Obama. But the thing with it is that these tariffs have never been a bad thing. They've only been bad in the eyes of people who don't have anything about history to begin with, and how Trump's business administration having actually to begin with. A lot of things that Trump does with his expertise, including with economics and finance, have never been in vain. Even his book, the Art of the Deal, he did have those ideas stolen from another vendor, but he didn't have to actually make the ideals wrong. Like, as a businessman, as a successful one in his time, in his 40s and upwards, and even as someone who actually knew what he was doing, and within his own Fortune 500 company renditions, he actually knew what he was doing. And nevertheless, if a person like Trump is going to actually impose tariffs on the country, would you think that would ever be a bad thing? If anything, he's not bad with business. If anything, he's good with the economy that he works with, and gives his own best efforts to know how he's going to do it right himself, by the justice of how he understands economics and how he does the politics in relation to them. I'm going to get to something a little different, the Epstein issue. So, another things about Epstein, and you'll always hear about how Trump is related to Carl Kirk or whatever the hell, it's news of the day, news of the week, old news of the month, what have you. But I'm going to tell you right away that the Epstein thing is a bit of a red herring. Epstein does not have to be a sunken issue if you would actually think about it for once. Epstein is something that you never have to understand anything about in the long run. If it's just going to be brown with blue like Charlie Kirk, you would not have to understand the tragedy behind it. Just because you think you understand somebody in like 2 seconds doesn't mean you have to understand it in 20 decades. Okay? That's just how it is. You don't have to know anything about someone to understand how to judge them properly. And even then, maljudgment can be bullshit. But that being said, would Epstein be a false issue just to not cover it itself? Of course not. But Epstein is not a good enough issue to cover on Trump alone. If Trump actually is being seen as a malicious person because of how he sees things like Epstein and the rape allegations, then so be it. But don't judge someone by the cover you can observe just because they don't cover up their own deals right. Okay, so like Trump doesn't overcome the issues related to Epstein, and maybe that seems bad on his part, but he can still show to the general public that he does not give a shit about the wrong things, even if they're associated in a very deep way. This world is much bigger and vaster than you can ever possibly imagine. And the things that are associated with this world do not have to become a reality for you, even if you have to observe the facts eventually. There are facts you have to find over time in the long run, but those facts are not something you decide for yourself the last second. Not even if you're stubborn to learn, as we all are trying to be stubborn to learn something objective and truly wise to begin with. Trump is one of those people. He's someone who is truly wise, truly acceptable, truly acknowledging, and truly invitational about the things he cares about in his life. If that's an opinion that's philosophical, so be it. Otherwise, this is Marchscarf Caerus29. I am out.